I mean, how many times have we seen people get a loss and it shoots their confidence, it changes their fighting style, whatever. I
Mhm.
mean, you could say that's happening to Izzy right now. You could say that happening to most fighters, and that's how they end up falling out
Yeah.
of professional fighting. And the fact that he was able to bounce back in such a dynamic and impressive fashion. All right, welcome to another episode of Two Fight Fans. We talk about all things in combat sports. I'm one fight fan, Colin.
And I'm the other Stewart.
And we had some records broken this weekend, Stubby. It was a weekend for us old folks. So I'm
Well,
I'm very happy.
for one of us old folks, quite a few old folks on this card got the absolute shit kicked out of them. So
That's true.
we
That's
must
true.
remember that while 90% of our comrades did perish in the fight, 10% of us did claim glory,
Yes.
which is good. But how do you want to start, Colin? Do you want to start from the very top with the main fight, or do you want to start from the bottom and work our way up?
Let's start with the main. Let's start with the main event of the night.
All right. All right.
So,
The biggest question I have for you is,
yeah.
Volkanovski now beats the 35-plus record. He's
And
the
let's
only
go,
person,
old guys. Let's do it.
yeah, the only person to win a undisputed title after 2 losses in a row and 2 finish losses in a row.
Yeah, yeah.
And only the second featherweight of all time besides Jose Aldo to win an undisputed title for the second time in this division. So 3 phenomenal records broken. Colin, what was your big takeaway from this fight?
So a couple things with this. So I have a couple takeaways. Some with Volk, some with Diego Lopez. Volk, he's I think they said it a lot. Like this was a vintage Volkanovski performance, and it's just
Mm-hmm.
I think his performance has been overshadowed by the last 2 that he had.
Yeah.
Like, and granted, 2 knockout losses back to back. Like we had never seen that, and people were saying he's washed. It's over for him. So this was like this was going to be very telling for him.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it just reminded me of how good Volkanovski actually is, because he could go from having those 2 losses, and fairly bad ones, being at an older age in a very dynamic division, and he still got it, and,
Still got it.
granted, I won't say that, Diego Lopez is the same caliber as, a Topuria or anything like that, but motherfucker's still on top, so like,
Yeah.
you can't deny. And the way he did it was also very, very good. Like in watching his performance against Diego Lopez, it reminded me. Okay, for a long time, I didn't like Volkanovski because he beat Max Holloway so many times, and I was just like bitter about it. And a lot of times, I
Mhm.
would like refuse to admit like how good he was
God,
because I was just like sitting there with my arms crossed, just like no Max Holloway, no Max Holloway, But
you
like,
child.
but seeing this fight is like, damn, like he is that good and he is sharp. He is smart. He's got a great fight IQ. And like, I mean, you couldn't ask for a better performance to answer a lot of the lingering questions surrounding Volkanovski and what his future entails in the featherweight division and in the UFC in general.
Yeah, 100%. Like, he showed why he's the best fucking without Topuria there, he is the best fucking featherweight on earth. Like, he just is. His skill level, his combinations, his fight IQ, like, all of it is
Yeah.
just head and shoulders above this division. Now, his body might break down. Who knows? In his next fight, he might lose it. Because we even saw flashes of his lack of durability here. We saw, I mean,
Yeah.
he definitely looked like a lesser version of peak Volkanovski. This did not look like Volkanovski against Yair Rodriguez or Max Holloway for the 3rd time. This was a slower, a little bit more hesitant, not quite as good Volkanovski. But even with that, even with him being slower, even with him being slightly less durable, even with him being a little less physically like dominant, he still is just so head and shoulders of most people in this division that
Yeah.
it's like, what a stud, dude. What an
Yeah.
absolute stud. Um, what did you think of Diego Lopez's performance, in contrast to Volkanovski's?
I thought he did a lot better than I thought he was going to do. This was his first
Mhm,
fight that was going 5 rounds, and he was going against a very strong dynamic opponent. And I thought he
mhm.
held his own fairly well. And, how much is it that Volk's chin is a little bit cracked versus Diego Lopez being that strong? He did stumble him a few times, he did get the better of some of those exchanges. So I think we've talked about this before. I think we talked about it maybe for his UFC 300 fight or whatever. But I think Diego Lopez will, once he cracks into this upper division, he needs to have a loss like this that's going to teach him more and it's going to bring out the better of him down the line. I would not be surprised if within 2 or 3 years Diego Lopez became champion at featherweight. Whether that's because he gets the rematch against Volk and bests him there, or Volk retires and he becomes the new number one contender again. I don't know. This fight did show me that Diego Lopez has what it takes to become champion one day.
I'm gonna push back on that. I
Really?
don't think Diego Lopez will ever be champion.
Wow. Really?
Yeah, I think there's
Tell me
enough
why.
people in this division, and we saw 2 of them on this
Mhm.
card who I
Okay.
think Diego Lopez can't beat in Yair Rodriguez and Blue Jean Silva.
Okay. Okay.
I think Diego Lopez is a physical powerhouse, but like Volkanovski, routinely, the only time Diego Lopez really had success was when Volkanovski stopped using his footwork to turn Diego Lopez. Right. It was when they kind of stood in that sort of like, when you both put down the controllers on Street Fighter and they do their like idle animations. It was only when it was Volkanovski and Lopez standing in front of each other that Lopez would get anything off really on Volkanovski. It was when
Okay.
Volkanovski stopped fainting and stopped circling constantly. Because when he did that, Lopez had no answer. Lopez just followed him. Lopez didn't take the initiative. Lopez couldn't pressure. It was only when Volkanovski was like, I'm going to stop right here and I'm going to try to draw out the most minute movement, not with my footwork, but just by like my body language. That's when Volkanovski would get cracked. And
Mhm.
it's like, you've got Volkanovski in this division. You got Mosar Evloev, who already beat Diego Lopez, and I think
Mhm.
would beat Diego Lopez again. You've got Yair Rodriguez, who after this fight, I'd be like, yeah, I think he could beat Diego Lopez. And Long John Silva. Long John Silva might be able to beat Diego Lopez. He's definitely physically more potent and dynamic. Um, because I think what this really showed is Diego Lopez is an extremely dangerous but limited fighter.
Right. Right.
And his attitude seemed to be to go, let's go skill for skill with Volkanovski. And you just can't. No one can do this in this division except Ilya Taporia, right?
But
But he's
that
not in this
that's
division anymore.
but that's kind of my point is like the person who can outskill him is Volk and other people very
Yeah, but
few will have the mobility and the dynamics that Volk does. I maybe out of those 3 that you said, maybe a Rodriguez, but I could see Silva kind of just trading with Lopez, and then that's a firefight. And I think either one of them would have, and we'll talk about Silva some more, but I think
yeah,
that would be like a fairly even match between the 2.
yeah, maybe. I mean, you also have to count like I don't know. Blue Jean Silva's got some crazy shit that he can do, and like Diego Lopez showed he got a chin, but his offense was not as diverse as Gene Silva's. Also, like, imagine Max Holloway decides he wants to come back. You telling me the Max Holloway, and Max Holloway fought well against Ilya Taporia.
Oh
I'd
yeah.
pick that older Max Holloway against Ilya Taporia to smash Diego Lopez.
Oh, yeah,
So like,
I'm assuming Max Holloway is done with 145. I think
yeah, yeah,
he's
that's
only
what
going to
he's
but
claimed. Yeah,
yeah, but if he were to come down, then yeah, you could throw his name against anyone at 145. I would still love to see him in Volk again, but it's not gonna happen. But
nah. Nah, we
like,
saw that 3 times, and we saw Volk beat him better each time,
yeah.
Like
But I mean, that's the thing. It's like it's one of those things where, okay, if he did come back to 145, I would see it as Volk, Max Holloway, everyone else. So like,
Yeah, I mean, that's still how it is, right?
yeah,
Like but it's still, we'll get to it with the other fighters in this division. So let's pause for a second.
okay,
Volkanovski, the only fighter to win a title fight 35 years and over.
okay,
The
yep,
only fighter to win an undisputed title coming off of 2 losses and 2 back-to-back finish losses.
hmm
And only the second person other than Jose Aldo. Max Holloway was never able to do it. Conor McGregor was never able to do it. To regain the title at 145.
yep.
Um, where is he in your all-time best fighters list?
Best as in everyone or
Just
145 or what?
MMA. Just MMA. Yeah, and
I mean,
best. Like your like top list of best fighters.
he's I think. I mean, we alluded to this early on. I'd have to count them all up, but I would say he's definitely in the top 10. You know,
Yeah.
but like I don't know this. Yeah, there's a lot to. If we do another like kind of our top 10 fighters, you know, I would definitely need to take a lot of time to sit down and kind of like draw out every single one of them. But yeah, he's definitely in the top 10 for what he's accomplished and what he did, and just how he fights. He's exciting. He's dynamic. He's skilled. I mean, yeah,
Yeah, I mean he's 2 fights away from tying Jose Aldo's title win record in the division. Um he smashed like that was one thing, and we'll talk about it more as we get to like Gene Silva. Uh the amount of control he had over this fight. I know some people give it 48-47 or 49-46. I had this 50-45 across the board. I don't know how
oh,
you
really?
scored it. Yeah,
I
but
gave
like
I gave Lopez the fourth round.
the fourth. So not even the round that he knocked Alexander Volkanovski down on.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty close. Like, if you want to be generous, you could, but I thought Volk did way too much damage in the first part of
Yeah,
that round.
I agree. I agree. Yeah. No, I had it 50-45. I was like, Volk controlled this fight so masterfully. Um,
Mhm.
yeah, like he might be in the top 5 for me, man. Like he is
Yeah.
so fucking good. And I don't know how much I don't know if you've seen any of the post-fight stuff, but like him walking back to his like the locker room or whatever afterwards, he seemed spent. He seemed like fuck. I don't know if I want to go through this again. Um
You're saying Volk
he's
did?
yeah. He seems like he's not I don't know how many more of these performances he has in him
Mhm.
overall. So, I hope we can get 1 or 2 more out of him and 1 or 2 more that, he can keep winning. But yeah,
But I mean,
he's
he's been in some intense fights. I mean, he's
hell yeah.
one of the records they said he's been in 10 straight championship fights, and almost all of them have gone to decisions. And but they weren't like boring decisions. They were not like um a kind of lay and pray, whatever. They've been dynamic back and forth, like exciting skill affairs, you know, and that
Yeah.
takes a lot out of you.
I mean, just listen to this. Since 2018, he fought Chad Mendez, Jose Aldo, Max Holloway again, Brian Ortega, the Korean Zombie, Max Holloway again, Islam Makhachev, Yair Rodriguez, Islam Makhachev, Ilya Topuria, Diego Lopez. Like a murderer's row. It doesn't get much better than that for a resume. Um, yeah, and he's getting older. He got clipped in this fight. Like it does show that like he definitely is slowing down. He is not peak Volk, and his durability is not quite there, but he's still so outclassed Diego Lopez. Um, Volkanovski, Lopez, a great title fight. Volkanovski showing what was the biggest like thing that you admired in watching Volkanovski's performance?
Just okay. You could really see this in two things for me, and the fact that they both happened with one person in one fight is remarkable. The whole age thing we've talked at length of how divisions move past you, and
Mhm.
with every year that goes by, especially at the lighter weight divisions, it's a lot to be added. And
Mhm.
I mean, we've seen that with some of our favorite fighters, like Max. We're seeing that starting to happen to him,
Mhm.
and that really pains me. And can Volk hang with younger, more dynamic fighters who are coming to basically like take his spot, and
Mhm.
turns out he can. But to also bounce back from two knockout losses in a row, I mean, how many times have we seen people get a loss and it shoots their confidence, it changes their fighting style, whatever. I
Mhm.
mean, you could say that's happening to Izzy right now. You could say that happening to most fighters, and that's how they end up falling out
Yeah.
of professional fighting. And the fact that he was able to bounce back in such a dynamic and impressive fashion,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, it doesn't erase history, but it makes you think like, wow, like this guy, he's the real fucking deal, and give him all of his props for that.
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like like a Daniel Cormier, John Jones thing. Like when John Jones was absent from the division, like Ilya Topuria is absent from this division, you still go like, God damn, Daniel Cormier is a generational talent here. It just happens that there's like another even more generational talent. And like the biggest thing with Volkanovski is this he still controlled that fight in such a way that like I don't know. Everyone was like, "Oh, I'm upset that Diego Lopez fought unintelligently or his offense was muted." And it's like it's still Volkanovski dictating the
Yeah.
fact that the offense is muted, right? His feinting is stopping Lopez from throwing. His footwork is stopping Lopez from getting any offense off. And he's still doing that even though he was doing that back in 2018. Right? Like there's been years of tape on him and still fighters cannot figure out how
Yeah.
to beat this guy. It was truly phenomenal, and I'm excited to have him as the champion of this weight class because featherweight, especially after this card, got very interesting. And so I think before we jump to the Patty Chandler, which I know
I
we want to talk about,
I do want to ask you though, who do you think is going to be who is going to be the most likely, and which person would you rather see fight Volk next for the title?
I think most likely is probably Yair Rodriguez because they have the
Ooh,
UFC Noche in September in Mexico
okay.
City or Guadalajara, somewhere in
Okay, okay.
Mexico. They're having a pay-per-view.
Yep, yep.
Yair Rodriguez was very adamant that there had been, like, some sort of backroom agreement that if Yair Rodriguez won, it would be Yair Volkanovski too.
Okay, okay.
I think it probably goes the same way as Rodriguez Volkanovski won.
Yep.
Um,
Yep.
but it could be an entertaining fight, and I'd love to see that, like, sure, Volkanovski gets another title win under his belt. But the fight I'd like to see is him against Mosar Evloev.
Ah, okay. I was gonna say whether it was Evlev or Murphy.
No, it's got well, no, Lerone Murphy, no, no. Like, but like Evloev beat 5 fights ago Diego Lopez,
Yep.
and he's won every fight since then. He beat Diego Lopez, and in the time that time he's beaten uh Arnold Allen and Aljamain Sterling, which is a much better resume than whatever Diego Lopez had coming into this fight. So he's the
Well,
rightful
well,
person.
originally this fight was not supposed to be for a title. They made it a title after Topuria was like, "All right, I'm out, going to lightweight." So they're like,
Yeah,
"Okay,
which
we have this fight now." So like,
we can talk about that fuckery because it's kind of weird that like Taporia seemed to think that the UFC was going to guarantee him a title shot, and yet now it might not be guaranteed, and he gave up the belt. And it's like also like, wouldn't it have been great to see Taporia versus Lopez, Taporia versus John Silva, Taporia versus Yair Rodriguez, Taporia versus all these guys?
oh, of course,
It would have been great. So I am disappointed that that's not happening.
yeah,
Um, but against Volkanovski, I don't know. I think it should be Mosar Evloev. Should be next. He's earned it. He's on what a 9 fight win streak. He
yep,
beat
yep,
Diego Lopez. He's the next most deserving contender, and that's what I want to see Volkanovski fight. Is the most deserving contender.
yeah.
Yeah,
I had Evlev as my next pick for him
yeah.
as well. So
But I think probably will be Yair Rodriguez because they can sell the UFC Noche in Mexico fight with Yair Rodriguez. But the
sure,
question is
sure.
then, who does Diego Lopez fight next? Who do you think he'll fight next, and who do you want him to fight next?
Ooh. I know we were texting back and forth at a uh Blue Jean Silva and Yair Rodriguez fight would be God, that
Ooh,
would be
dirty,
insane.
filthy.
But, Lopez versus Silva would be good too.
Yeah,
I'd be up for
or
that.
Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez, right? Like,
Yeah,
if
yeah, yeah,
Lopez can
yeah.
beat Yair Rodriguez, that's another number one title fight, right?
Yeah, yeah,
And if Yair Rodriguez wins, okay, I'm ready to watch the rematch between him and Volk.
yeah.
Like, and apparently they have like massive beef in real life.
They apparently did you see that video where they were just shouting at each other at the pre-fight
Yeah,
conference and Volk was just sitting there like, "Hey, wait, I'm the one fighting these guys." Like,
yeah,
what the
yeah.
fuck?
And like, I take a 5 round main event of them in UFC Noche rather than having it be a Volkanovski title fight. Like, sure, why the fuck not?
Yeah.
Um, that'd be good. I'd love that. Um, yeah. But we're talking about the featherweight division, which got a huge shakeup and not a huge shakeup in some fights. But there were 5 fights that happened. So we know what's happening with Volkanovski. He's the champion now. He'll probably fight Yair Rodriguez or Mozart Evloev. Diego Lopez, hopefully he gets a good fight after this. But let's talk about the main card ones. We have Yair Rodriguez versus Patricio Pitbull. Colin, what did you think of this fight? What was your major takeaway?
Uh, Two big takeaways. One, Pitbull got way too slow of a start. I don't
He's
know
old,
if it was
man.
just, I don't know if it was his age, the pressure of the
Yeah, he's old.
situation, or whatnot. But he did not. The Pitbull that I was hoping would come out did not come out, and I'm a little nervous about any other fight that's come out. But
Hmm.
two, and more importantly, Yair Rodriguez impressed me a lot with this fight. He
Okay.
was dynamic. He was explosive. He didn't let the pressure of the moment overwhelm him. I remember the first one of the first fights I saw with Yair Rodriguez was his fight with Korean Zombie, where he did that crazy ducking elbow to
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah.
flatline him.
Hmm.
And I guess maybe I just haven't registered his other fights then, but that was always the one that stuck out in my mind. It's just like, okay, yeah, he's kind of a wild fighter and he's very exciting, he's crowd pleasing, but in terms of the actual dynamics and skills to succeed at the top of the 145 division, I don't know if he has, but this one really proved to me that even though he was basically hitting a walking punching bag at times, the
Hmm.
actual skill and technique of his strikes is very sharp, very crisp, and will give lots of people at 145 a challenge. And I am very excited for him. And with this new crop of 145ers coming up, I would definitely put him at the upper echelons with them.
That's interesting that you say that off this because I agree. Okay, so his technique or his mechanics on his strikes.
Yes.
Oh,
I'm
you
basing
know
it
me.
off of that.
Yeah,
Like,
you know
so
us. We love mechanics. We love technique. We love to be like, did you chamber your kick properly? Did you pivot correctly?
did
Did
you
you
snap
return?
back
Yeah,
strikes?
exactly.
Yeah.
But he's had that for a long time. You called out the Chance and Jung fight. Bitch, that shit was 8 years ago.
And that's the thing. I forgot that that was
Eight
how long ago.
years ago.
I didn't realize how long ago that was until I
Yeah,
looked it up later on. I was like, "Oh shit!" He was like a little boy in that fight.
yeah. And in
So
that time,
yeah.
he's lost to Max Holloway. He's lost to Volkanovski. His
Mhm.
fight before this, he lost to Brian Ortega. Washed ass Brian Ortega because he
Yeah.
gassed and then tapped to a choke. Um, he's always been a fun, dynamic fighter who has wicked offense, but zero defense and basically no fight durability. Not that he
Mm,
can't take a punch, not that his body isn't durable, but I just mean the wearing down across 15 minutes, he wears down so quickly.
mm,
And the only reason he didn't is because Patricio Pitbull, as much as I love him, dude's washed. Dude's just washed. He's still very good and skilled, but he's just washed. He couldn't close the distance. He wasn't implementing a game plan that was good. He was hesitant. He was a little gun shy. Um this was a perfect stylistic matchup to make Yair Rodriguez look good.
Mm-hmm.
Overall. So like, I don't know. That's why I want him to kind of fight Diego Lopez before he fights Volkanovski again, or some other number one contender, because this feels a little fugazi to me. He's
Yeah.
fighting this much older fighter who just like is Patricio Pitbull. We call that like not good against kickers and not good against tall fighters. What the fuck is Yair Rodriguez? A tall kicker. So
Mm-hmm.
like already you have a great matchup even in Patricio Pitbull's prime. And
Yeah.
it's been 5 years since his prime. Like, ugh, not ideal. But like, look, Rodriguez disciplined, stuck to the game plan, didn't gas. It's like we have to give him props for that. But
Yeah. Yeah.
that doesn't make me think that he's like suddenly going to be able to beat Volkanovski or suddenly be able to beat Mostar Evloev or other people in the top 5 in this division.
I don't think he's ready for that, but I do think
Yeah.
he belongs at the top of the division, which is
So
where
where
he
do
is
we?
right now.
Yeah, what do we do with him? Like, what do we match him up against?
Dude, any of those fights that we talked about, Lopez or Silva, would be, I think, one great test, but also like super exciting to watch.
Yeah. Yeah. Is there anyone else that we could because he's like, I only want to fight for the title or like a major fight after this. It's
Uh,
there's no Ilya, there's no Max, and then Yair is number 5, or he would be number basically 3 if you removed Volkanovski and Max.
yeah.
So
I mean,
there's almost no one other than maybe Diego Lopez.
yeah. I think that would be a good
I think it's
fight.
got to be that. I think it's got to be that.
Yeah.
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 I think you're right. And then what do we do with Patricio Pitbull? Who? Good technique, just a little gun shy, hung out at range too long. You can't be in kicking range constantly with Yair Rodriguez. Didn't seem to have the kind of like grit and determination to close the distance. This is just the beginning of a fighter not being able to fight against this level of competition. It felt to me.
Yeah. I feel like for him, we could, if we want to sell like another name, but also be it as like a way to claw back, maybe as much as I don't want to do is like Brian Ortega or
That'd be good. That'd be a good
Jo-
fight.
Josh Emmett.
Josh Emmett might kill Patricio Pitbull. We have to be careful with that.
Yeah.
I would say like Brian Ortega is good because they're kind of like a similar generation. Or like really, Patricio Pitbull was the top featherweight in Bellator when Jose Aldo was.
Yeah.
He should be fighting Jose Aldo. He should be fighting Max Holloway. He should be fighting people of that era.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
I still think whatever happens with Ayman Zahabi and Jose Aldo, let's get Jose Aldo against Patricio Pitbull.
Okay.
Though I do like your call out for Brian Ortega because like what the fuck else are we gonna do with Brian Ortega?
Yeah,
You know?
exactly.
Like Patricio Pitbull, Brian Ortega might be a good fight. Because it's kind of a old man fight where nobody's really taking a spot. So I actually like that. I think that's a good call. That's a good
All
call.
right.
2 other featherweight fights. We gotta talk about this one. Our boy, Blue Jean Silva,
Oh yeah, God, this was
coming out there and just murking Bryce Mitchell.
yeah.
What was your major takeaway for this fight, Colin?
That dude, Blue Jean Silva is a shit-eating wild man. Like, not just with the antics of what he did, like just barking all the time and saying he's gonna murder Bryce Mitchell at the pre-fight conference or whatever, but just like everything he did in the fight too was like man has bad intentions. Like the guy
Yeah.
didn't. He was like, "Hey, let's touch gloves." Oh, you don't want to touch gloves? Fine. I'm just gonna like beat the piss out of you every chance I get. Like,
Yeah.
so many strikes unanswered. So many like just everything was like. I mean, we talk about Rodriguez, Yair Rodriguez, like basically fighting a punching bag in Pitbull. Like
Mhm.
this was also that, except way more violent. Like
Yeah.
with way more bad intentions as well. Like everything that I saw Silva do, it was like, wow, he is trying to murder Bryce Mitchell right now. And you know what?
Good.
I'm with it. I'm fine with this right
Yeah,
now.
yeah, absolutely. And it's like the more I watch him, the more I'm convinced he is featherweight Yo Romero, right?
I remember you texted me that. Yeah.
Yeah, because it's something where I'm like, especially watching the Yair Rodriguez Pitbull fight or the Volkanovski Lopez fight, Yair Rodriguez and Volkanovski, they just held so much more control over the fight, second by
Yes.
second, minute by minute. They controlled the conditions of each exchange they had. They controlled the pace of each round. They controlled so much about it. Just like Yo Romero, Blue Jean Silva didn't really control the tempo of exchange, the pace of each round, what was happening, because Bryce Mitchell numerically outlanded John Silva, like, quite heavily every round of this fight.
What?
And,
No
like,
way.
yeah, and had better control time. Like, John Silva was backing up more than Bryce Mitchell was. Bryce Mitchell was landing more physically than he was. John Silva, just like Yo Romero, just doesn't give a shit. He's just like, I know I'll kill you by the end of these 15 minutes. It doesn't matter. And he just has violent, explosive tendencies that nobody seems to be able to stop. It reminds me of Yo Romero getting beat for 14 and a half minutes until he flying kneed Chris Weidman into the land of wind and ghosts. Or when Lyoto Machida outpunched Yo Romero for 2 rounds, and then Yo Romero's like, I'm done with this now, and he took him down and elbowed his skull into the core of the earth, right? Like, it just reminds me of someone who has not figured out the actual right way to control a fight and build strategy around controlling a fight, and it's just like, I'm fine just sitting in the fire and losing for 14 out of 15 minutes because I know on minute 15, I'll kill you. And that's what John Silva is, and that's so exciting, and it's so cool, man.
I
It's yeah.
I gotta look up the fight statistics. For you to say Bryce Mitchell outlanded Gene Silva is like staggering to me.
You didn't see the fight? Like, Bryce Mitchell was, like, consistently outlanding him. Like, it wasn't super impactful, but for strikes that were actually landed, shots to the body, he was doing that stomp kick to the leg, he was doing roundhouse kicks to the leg, he was landing jabs against Blue Jean Silva, and Blue Jean Silva just would, like, laugh and taunt and do stuff, and then he'd land, like, one heavy punch for every, like, 5 Bryce landed, and, like, Bryce would, like, go spiraling backwards, right?
Yeah, that's
It's like he just
so.
knew. He just was like, "It doesn't matter. I'll just keep." You see fighters like that who you can tell their game is predicated on, "It doesn't matter what my opponent does because I know on a long enough timeline, I'll kill them."
Yeah,
And that's
but
what Gene Silva has.
I think that just points out like how much more impactful and damaging his strikes were because like I
Absolutely.
honestly don't remember. I don't remember Bryce Mitchell landing that much
Yeah,
against him. Like
yeah,
that's wild to me.
yeah. But it is an interesting thing, especially when we have performances like Yair Rodriguez and Volkanovski, where you go like, is that gonna work against someone who is really good at controlling and dictating the parameters of a fight? Can you? Because that's what happened when Yo Romero ran into Robert Whitaker and Israel Adesanya. It was like, once you run into someone who can control the parameters of a fight, and that's their whole game, is totally dictating every second of every minute of the entire fight. Yo Romero couldn't beat Robert Whitaker. Yo Romero couldn't beat Izzy because it was just like, you have someone, your raw athletic ability will not overcome the strategic advantage that they have. Um, yeah. So I'm super interested in seeing Gene Silva. He definitely will fight for a title. He might win a title if Volkanovski isn't there and Topuria isn't there and Max Holloway isn't there. I mean, I don't see any reason why John Silva shouldn't be holding the belt at 145.
Okay, I'm looking at this right now and I do see why Bryce Mitchell. Okay, so let me read these stats to you really quickly. So Bryce
Mhm.
Mitchell landed 56% of his significant strikes, 36 out of 64, whereas Gene
Mhm.
Silva only landed 42%, which was 27 out of 63.
Mhm.
Now, to the head, Bryce Mitchell landed 7 out of 25, whereas Gene Silva landed 11 out of 44.
Mhm.
Mitchell landed 8 out of 18 to the body. Silva landed 13 out of 15.
Okay.
But Bryce Mitchell landed 21 of 21 strikes to the leg, whereas
Yeah.
Silva only landed 3 of 4. And I now that I'm thinking about it, I do remember him throwing kicks and like Silva taking them, and also some of them like looking like they did some damage, but then Silva just continuing to be like, yeah, whatever, I don't fucking care about this. Like,
Yeah, right? It reminded me of, like, Robert Whittaker landing leg kicks against Yo Romero, and it was just like, it meant nothing. It just
yeah,
means nothing. Um, but this for the 2 fights that Robert Whittaker had with Yo Romero, it went to the 5th round, and then you have to numerically add it up and go, well, you didn't land as much, so you lose, right? Like, that fighting style relies on the fact that you get a finish.
yeah.
Because numerically and strategically, you will be beaten in each round.
Mhm.
Yeah. But I will say, like, Gene Silva's kicks to the body, you mentioned, like, him having heavier, like, body strikes. Dude, those kicks to the body,
Yeah,
punishing. Like
yeah.
a machete into a side of pork. Just lancing people, dude. Um, I'm super excited for John Silva. He's
Oh
an
yeah,
insane man. He doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. I love it. He's great.
oh yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
yeah, he's stunning. Uh, so yeah, and Bryce Mitchell, yeah, fuck that guy. But also
I,
like,
I I'm glad that he got choked out too.
yeah, well, that was the thing. I gotta say, John Silva, very competent off his back, very competent going for submissions and setting up the submissions and transitioning while in an attempt for a guillotine to go for a different submission, right?
Yeah.
Like he got that ninja choke, which is when I was training was called a power guillotine because it was an adjustment on the guillotine, but like
Mhm.
he adjusted for that. He didn't just have it be a pure guillotine and like great. He showed like he's getting better and he knows what to do. Um I love it. It's always exciting in a division to have a Yo Romero type character.
Yeah.
Just somebody that is this insane physical force that defies logic and understanding that just is coming sweeping through. Uh it's awesome. So a great addition. A great addition.
Oh yeah.
And Bryce Mitchell, go fuck yourself. Last featherweight fight we have to talk about. Dan Ige versus the homunculus Sean Woodson. Colin, this
Oh
was your
my god,
first fight seeing Sean Woodson. Tell me what it was like
dude.
when your eyes lit upon this man.
It, this man's the fucking Slender Man. Like he is
Mhm,
all arm and leg and that
mhm.
big ass dome, like you said.
Mm.
But that
Yeah,
dome is way too far to hit. Is so far,
yeah.
And like
He's huge.
he is. And goddamn, hey, I'm proud of Dan Ige, but also like I think the stoppage was a little bit early,
Absolutely.
And but like I what's weird to me is that like well, and maybe it's because his boxing is good enough that like anyone trying to neutralize some of his range with like kicking, like his
Mhm.
because his legs look like little bitty twigs, like some of the people in this division I feel like could snap his leg.
We're talking about
And
Shawnee Wood?
yeah, talking about against Sean Woodson.
Yeah.
But like Danny Ige barely threw any sort of leg kicks. Like he threw a couple, and they like it definitely started to bruise up, but like nothing really. He never really followed up with that afterwards. And he was struggling with the range for a little bit until he got that big. What was it like?
Mhm.
Just that big left hand that stumbled him back. So yeah, I mean, it was. I'm glad Danny Gay got the win, but I
It wasn't
don't
great.
really know. It wasn't great. Yeah.
No. And it makes me think, and this is something where we often use the word washed when somebody's like fully gone. Is this a sign that Danny Gay is kind of washed?
I mean, I kind of
Like,
thought that like I like Danny Gay, but his last 2 fights showed
yeah.
me a pattern of like you're good. You've got about a round and a half in you,
Hmm.
and after that, you got nothing. And
Well, and I think something that's important to remember, and we'll talk about this when we talk about Michael Chandler and Patty Pimblett. When we talk about washed, it's like it's not just like you lose cardio or you lose durability. It is a like a weird like from watching you fight 2 or 3 fights ago, we've noticed that you've lost tools to use in a fight that you had before, and the reason you've lost those tools doesn't seem to be because your opponent has taken them away from you. It just seems that, like, quite literally, like a handyman losing a hammer or a wrench off his tool belt, you've just don't have access to them or you've forgotten how to use them. And like you said, the lack of leg kick, the lack of certain techniques, you're just like it wasn't that Sean Woodson was negating the leg kick by checking it really well or using fancy footwork to stop Dan Ige from using the leg kick. It just was if Dan Ige was like, I just don't have that in my repertoire anymore. And that's what, like, really that's what the sign of most washed fighters is. It's not the chin is suddenly gone or, like, I'm so gun shy I can't throw anything. It's this slow sort of depreciation of their skills, this slow paring back of the tools that they have regardless of who they fight. And I really saw that in this fight with Danny Ige. I was just like, "Man, you aren't the fighter I saw 3 fights ago." And it wasn't like because of your durability or your speed or any sort of like physical gift. It was just like you're not throwing in combination and you used to throw in combination. You're not using leg kicks and you used to throw leg kicks. Like you just are a lesser version of yourself. It's as if elements of your game have been stripped away.
Yeah.
Yeah. And a bad stoppage overall. It was kinda
Yeah.
depressing to watch. But it wasn't the most depressing featherweight fight, Colin. Did you watch the Darren Elkins-Juliana Rosa fight?
I did not know. I
Bro, this is one of the saddest fights I think I've ever seen.
oh, no.
Darren Elkins gets rocked, I think at, like, minute 2 of this fight.
Oh,
He never regains his equilibrium for the
yeesh.
next 2.5 minutes. And I don't mean just, like, slight equilibrium. I mean, like, when you see somebody who's like, oh, they're rocked and they kind of have a hard time keeping their feet underneath them.
Yeah, they're stumbling around.
Yeah, and it wasn't like he was getting continually bombed on. It just, like, he got rocked once, and it took 2 minutes for
Yeesh.
Juliana Rosa to put him away, but, like, Darren Elkins did not recover or show any better signs of life across those 2 minutes. It
Oof.
was really bad. Darren Elkins, yeah, dude, you're a stud. You're what, 40? Yeah, you're 40. You're gonna turn bro, when I close on my house in 5 weeks, the exact day I close on my house, Darren Elkins will be 41. It's time to stop, bud. I've been watching you since I was basically a teenager, and I'm about to close on a house. Like, it's time to stop. It's time to stop. It was a really sad fight. Dude, and Mike Beltran, and I gotta also say, hey, Darren Elkins' corner, fuck you. Fuck you for letting him go through that for 2 minutes. He
Yeah.
just, like, took, like, 30 unanswered strikes across 2 minutes for no reason, even though he was stumbling around like a drunk. Like, fuck you. You didn't give a shit about his health. And then Mike Beltran, also, fuck you. You didn't step in, even though you had 2.5 minutes of noticing this dude was not able to defend himself.
Yeah.
Uh, it was a very sad fight
Mm.
overall. So that was, I mean, that's the first fight I watched, and I was like, dude, this is a bad night for old men. It became very sad, very
Dude,
quick.
I took your advice. I said, "Don't watch the first one of the prelims." Like, yeah, you know what? I don't need to watch it right at 5.
Dude,
I'll
it
start like 5:30,
it
5:40, no
was
problem.
it was fucking rough. It was a rough fight to watch,
Yeah,
man.
I'm sure.
Darren Elkins is, won 2 of his last 3, but, like, this was a bad one. The fact that you get rocked once and you can't recover for 2 minutes straight, like, in the UFC, like, that's gonna be bad for your health, like, super bad for your health, so you gotta call it. Those are all the featherweight fights. Colin, let's do a quick rapid fire matchup for the featherweight division. Pull up the featherweight
Oh,
rankings.
all
Unfortunately,
right.
the UFC has not updated them. They still have Ilya Topuria as champion, and they still have Max Holloway in this division. That's
Yeah,
both bullshit. They are both at lightweight. So we have Alexander Volkanovski as champion. Diego Lopez will most likely drop, but he's number 1 contender. Mosar Evloev, Yair Rodriguez,
yeah,
Brian Ortega, Arnold Allen, Lerone Murphy, Aljamain Sterling, Josh Emmett, Giga Chikadze, Yusuf Zalal. We'll have Bryce Mitchell probably leave, and it'll be John Silva, Calvin Kattar, and Dan Ige.
All right.
What do we do for the title fight? We've already said Mozart Evloev. We think that's
Yeah.
probably the best call.
Yep.
Great. What do we do with Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, Brian Ortega?
I mean, those three are Diego Lopez, Yair Rodriguez, and John Silva. I think any combination of those three fighting each other would be great. Whether it's Diego Lopez versus Yair Rodriguez or Yair Rodriguez versus John Silva, I think any of those would be good fights, and they all have title contention implications. And the one who's the odd man out, I don't know, Lerone Murphy. He got a win, so he can move his way up against one of them as well.
Yeah. Should we have him go against, I don't know, Aljamain Sterling, Arnold Allen?
Yeah, sure.
Cool. What should we do with Dan Ige?
I think Dan Ige is going to be that gatekeeper status. If you want to break into the top 15, top 10, yeah, I think he's
should
going to
he
be one of
fight
those.
Bryce Mitchell then?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I don't really care about Bryce Mitchell, so I don't really. He's not going to make waves in the top 10 anytime soon. So it's just kind of like a throwaway, I guess.
Okay. I mean, a pretty good division though, I think overall, right?
Yeah.
We've got John Silva, we've got Yair Rodriguez, we've got Arnold Allen's possibly in there, Lerone Murphy's possibly in there, Aljamain Sterling might still make a run. We've got Blue Jean Silva lurking like a fucking menace. It's a pretty exciting division.
Yeah. There's enough of the older name that is oh yeah, there's still a division that I remember coming up with, but there's a whole new generation of fighters that are chomping at the bit right now. So
yeah,
it's exciting, but it is going to be one of those change of the guard soon, just like we're seeing at lightweight. So,
well, and let's get to it then at lightweight.
Yeah, I know.
Boy, howdy. Do you want to start at the Chase Hooper Jim Miller fight, or do you want to start at the Paddy Pimblett Michael Chandler fight?
Oh, okay. So I actually didn't get to see the Chase Hooper Jim Miller fight, but you did text me about it, and this is no country for old men right now.
Hey,
it's just
Chase Hooper looked great.
Good.
His
okay.
submissions looked great. He looked kind of manhandle Jim Miller. His striking was better. His wrestling was better. He just looked like the younger, more fit guy with better technique. So, I'm actually very excited. He's only 25, Chase Hooper in this division. He looked like a stud. He took the win very cleanly from Jim Miller. Jim Miller fought a good fight. It wasn't Jim Miller versus Bobby Green, where Jim Miller just was like, I'll never go for a takedown. And you're like, that's how you beat Bobby Green. What are you doing? Jim Miller fought intelligently, and Chase Hooper just had an answer everywhere. So I'm super excited for Chase Hooper to kind of break into this top 20, maybe work his way into this top 15.
All right.
The fight I'm not excited to talk about, Colin, is Paddy Pimblett versus Michael Chandler.
Come on.
What's your big takeaway in this one? What?
Okay. I got two things. One,
okay.
Michael Chandler's done.
Yeah. Yep. 100%.
He showed some grit, albeit a lot of cheating grit against Charles Oliveira, but he was fighting back a little bit. He didn't get submitted. He didn't get TKO'd against him. So show some resilience there. Okay. But never once in this fight did he seem in the fight with Paddy Pimblett, which is, I can't believe I'm saying that, and I think we have to admit that not Paddy Pimblett is the future of the division, but he is better than we initially pegged him to be. I'm not saying he's great, and I think there is room for him to still get a little bit better. I don't think he will ever be the UFC champion, but I do think he will be high enough in the rankings to merit discussion. We kind of joked around about how this guy was so poor skill and it was being spoon-fed matches, and yes, Chandler's older. Yes, he's what, but Paddy Pimblett did something that Charles Oliveira couldn't do.
I know.
like you could say that maybe that fight with Charles Oliveira chipped enough away out of Chandler that Pimblett was able to get the finish. But like, Patty was decent in this fight. He employed good like tactics. Like the leg kicks were definitely,
Mhm.
that early calf kick definitely took some pep out of Chandler's step.
Mhm.
He was engaging on the feet properly. He defended Chandler like pretty decently, and he manhandled Chandler at the end of that whatever round was. He was getting tossed around in that first and second round, and then he did
Mhm.
the exact same thing back to Michael Chandler. And
Yep.
he did that flying knee to cut him. And like I said, I don't believe in lucky strikes. Except for that
Mhm.
stupid double spinning battle. That shit is stupid as fuck. But anyway, like but that jumping flying knee, like I mean,
No, he
he
timed
got
it
he timed
perfectly, and
it.
he read it, yeah.
Yeah. So like, I mean, I'm not saying Paddy Pimblett is the future of the lightweight division. I am saying though, we got to give him some props. You know, he
100%.
the man is finding ways to win,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
albeit in weird kind of like, I don't want to say fluky, but weird fucking ways, but he keeps doing it against better and better opponents. Every time we
yeah,
say he's going to get stopped, he's going to get destroyed, he's going to get knocked out, it doesn't fucking happen. So like,
yeah.
I mean, although I I think we did text back and forth saying, what in a crazy fight if they were to do this in Europe with Paddy Pimblett and Ilya Topuria at lightweight.
Ooh,
Like,
hold on, we'll get to that in a second.
yeah.
No, it's everything you just said is exactly right, and let me say it. Patty, I know you don't listen to this podcast. I have to eat crow. I doubted you. I've been a hater from day one, and you've
Yeah.
100% proved me wrong. 100%. Um, there are 3 things I wanna touch on real quick. Number 1, we talked about the paring away of tools as a sign of someone being washed in the case of Dan Ige. It felt like Michael Chandler, this was just a yet another fight in which I watched him have less tools in
Mhm.
it. And so, like, he is washed, but, like, he's still a dangerous washed. He's not as
Yeah.
dangerous as he was in the Charles Oliveira fight or the fight before. Look, I think probably him sitting out for 2 years to wait for Conor McGregor will go down as a historic self-dunk. Like, a beyond the proportions of Jamal Hill, beyond the proportions of anyone we've ever seen. This is a historic career self-own for Michael Chandler. Because his skills look so bad. He didn't look like he knew how to close the distance. Henry Hooft was screaming at him, "You can't throw one-shot strikes." And every strike he threw was one shot. He never threw a 1-2. He never threw one strike beyond that. He was physically strong, but it turned out, look, let's talk about what Patty did well, because we talked about Michael Chandler. No kicks in this fight. No combination. No understanding of how to close distance at all. A total paring away of any actual, like, semblance of strategy. Let's talk about what Patty did well. Patty is fucking strong. He looked
Yeah.
huge, and he manhandled Michael Chandler. He looked strong as shit. Number 2, we talked about his grappling is good and getting to the back is good, and it looked like it just got better. Maybe that's Michael Chandler looking bad, but it doesn't matter. Patty Pimblett has at least maintained his grappling ability once it gets to the ground. So he's bigger, more athletic, stronger, and he's taking people to the ground. And like you said, maybe his technique and his mechanics sucks ass, but he knows when to deploy that technique. He knows when to throw a knee. He knows when to throw a punch, right? He kept catching Chandler darting in, and he's like, well, I'll just like throw out the donkiest jab I've ever seen. And Chandler would run into it. Colin, do you know what fighter he reminds me of? A physical powerhouse? Someone who deploys techniques correctly, but the technique itself is shitty, and who actually is kind of good on the ground?
All right, give it to me.
Is he 155's Dricus Duplessis? Is that what Patty
Oh
Pimblett is? Is Patty Pimblett our good South African friend? Dricus? Like, is that what we've got here? Because it might be,
Oh
man.
my god.
And here's the thing, just like you said, Paddy finds a way to win. What did I say when I picked Dricus to win the belt? He finds a way to win, motherfucker. Like,
Oh my god. Yeah.
we're,
Yeah.
we're in the Dricus era, in which being a big, powerful donk who doesn't have good technique, whose skill isn't very good, but knows when to deploy the right tactics, wins. And that's what Paddy's got. And look, I'm slapping respect on Dricus's name. I gotta slap respect on Paddy's name. It pains us. It pains us to celebrate Dricus because it doesn't make any sense. We've been brought up to think technique and proper training is the right way to go. But this is, I mean, does that feel wrong? Or does
No, that
that's
makes so much sense of what you're saying.
right?
Like we've seen it at 185. Why not see it at 155? Like, come on.
But it shouldn't happen at this division, and yet it is. And yet it is. Um, I mean, I don't, because we joke about it at 185 with Dricus because that division is kind of shit overall. I don't want it to take away from the things that Patty is actually good at. Like you said, he was catching Michael Chandler anytime Chandler came in. Like he could pick up the reads, and even though Patty still lifts his chin when he throws his jab and flares his elbow and has bad mechanics on the jab, he went, I should throw a jab here. And he did it, right? Whether his jab is shitty, he still knew when to throw it, and Chandler still ran onto it. When he was like, maybe I should do a jumping knee here because I know he's going to run into it. Even if the mechanics of the jumping knee weren't great, he still knew when to throw it. His ground game is actually like technically very sound, so there's no like issue there. And he's becoming extremely physically strong. So we started to fucking bully Michael Chandler around. But the whole time I was watching it, I was like, dude, this feels like watching Dricus du Plessis fight. It feels like 155 Dricus du Plessis. It's crazy.
Yeah. No, that is such a good call out right there. I didn't even think about that, and now that you said it, like I can't not see that now.
Yeah.
I can't unsee that.
Yeah, it's wild. So here's the thing. We just match made 145. And after this fight, you know we gotta match make 155.
Oh yeah.
So let's pull up the rankings, Colin, and let's go through this. Patty was at number 12. He just beat number 7. So let's just match make, let's say, the top 7 or 8.
Okay.
Islam Makhachev. Who should Islam Makhachev fight for his next title defense? And remember, we have Ilia Topuria not in these rankings floating around out there.
Okay, are we considering him or no?
Absolutely. You have to.
Okay. God. I would for Islam, I'd say either Charles again or Ilya.
It's got to be Ilia, though, right?
I mean, it just depends on how much fuckery the UFC wants to do. So
Yeah, but like if we were talking about what's the best fight to make, Islam is the number 1 pound for pound. Ilia is number 2. We gotta do that. Otherwise,
yeah,
what was the point of him vacating the belt? Like,
yeah,
we
yeah,
gotta.
yeah.
Who does Arman Saryukian fight?
Rematch Charles in a 5-round fight, not a 3-round.
Okay, that's a good option. Now, so we've now knocked off Arman and Charles. What about Justin Gaethje?
Ooh. Justin and Dustin again as like 2 retirement fights.
Justin and Dustin might be good, or Justin versus Dan Hooker.
Yep. The original. Yeah, I'd be with that.
Then what do we have? Max Holloway, Dustin Poirier, maybe.
Maybe. Yeah. I could
So
see
then, what do
that.
we do with Patty? Let me offer a different scenario. Charles versus Ilya.
Okay.
Max versus Dustin. Justin Gaethje versus Dan Hooker in the fight we didn't get that got canceled, but would be an absolute banger. And then
Okay.
Arman Saryukian and Paddy Pimblett, 2 strongest grapplers outside of Islam
Ooh.
Makhachev, going for a number 1 contender fight. And then we allow Islam to fight the winner of Arman and Paddy.
That's kind of interesting, actually.
Yeah, I think so. Now here's the other scenario I have to posit.
Do not
Islam
say fucking Conor McGregor in anything of
No, I
this.
will not say that.
Thank
He's
you.
not fighting again. Islam Makhachev is not gonna decide what his move is until Bilal and Jack Della Matta lay down a fight. If Jack Della Matta wins, Islam Makhachev might move up to challenge Jack Della Maddalena for the
Okay.
title
Yeah.
at welterweight.
Yeah.
In that scenario, a vacant lightweight title fight, could
Mhm.
it be Paddy Pimblett versus Ilia Topuria?
Oh
England
my
versus
god.
Spain. Bro, that might be it. That might be what the UFC is banking on, right?
That would be very profitable.
Yeah. 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 And look, dude, Paddy keeps getting better. And here's the thing, dude. It's all fun and games to have a Dricus Du Plessis beat Izzy or beat Robert Whitaker, a 185er, but not a 145er.
Yeah,
You can't
no.
have a Dricus Du Plessis beat a Jose Aldo type character. That's
We
not okay,
we can't have
right?
the division of skill devolve into that. Like we just can't.
Exactly. Exactly. But it might happen, dude. Uh-oh. Our whole world's turned upside down. You know, cats and dogs living together, mass hysteria, real biblical stuff. It's gonna be woo, 155 and 145, dude. Suddenly
Yeah, this card,
became
yeah, turned everything upside down.
yeah,
Like,
suddenly became fascinating. And the matchups you can make in the top 10 are suddenly bad shit. You know?
yeah,
Like,
yeah, no,
yeah.
100%.
Um, yeah, it's God. I mean, anything else to say about this Patty Michael Chandler fight? Like, I was flabbergasted watching it, but goddamn, dude, Patty looked good. I mean, he looked good in the way Dricus Du Plessis looks good, where you go, like, you know what? The broad strokes of this strategy are correct, and you're doing it.
And
And
he's getting
also,
success. Like,
yeah, and I have to call something out too. Bobby Green stood with Patty Pimblett for a minute and then was like, I should shoot because clearly Patty's best chance is on the ground. Tony Ferguson tried to have a long range kicking battle with Patty, even after it was very clear Patty was better at kicking than the mummy of Tony Ferguson. Michael Chandler's game plan seemed to be to try to take down Patty Pimblett and like mat return him routinely after he stood with him for 10 seconds.
mhm.
We have to take seriously the fact that like when someone gets in there with Patty, for some reason they become bewitched by him and decide to fight in a way that is not conducive to them winning. Like, I thought it was just a Bobby Green Donkey Brains thing or just a, old brain Tony Ferguson thing, but it's 3 fights in a row now where every one of his opponents has routinely made similar Donkey Brains decisions.
Well, look,
There's something about him.
we've talked about this before. When you train at an elite level, they suddenly match up with someone who has like weird timing or jank technique, but can make it work. It's like so different and so unorthodox of what you're expecting that it like one is really hard to prep for that. So you have to do basically all of your adaptations in the moment. And that sometimes is not enough for you. And maybe you don't have the skill to adapt to something that is devoid of skill. I don't know, devoid of traditional skill. I don't know. We talked about it many times. You know? We just talked about with Dricus, in the old days, Keith Jardine, who made a huge run at
Yeah.
light heavyweight and if you look at that guy was the complete definition of like jank technique.
Yeah.
So
I
I
I
mean,
think the thing with, like, at least Patty, because like, Dricus, like, hits like a fucking truck, you know? Like,
yeah,
the thing about Patty is, like, Michael Chandler came into this fight, and, like, Patty threw a couple of punches and whiffed on them, and then Chandler's like, "Oh, shit. I better take this to the ground." And I keep going like, "What do you do? You took full power shots from Justin Gaethje and Dustin Poirier, and yet Patty's not correctly, like, gauged range punches where he whiffs makes you go, I gotta get in on his waist and mat return him. I I would normally chalk that up to just like somebody being silly, but the fact that that's happened to 3 fighters who haven't even gotten hit by him when they make bad decisions, they just see him throw punches and they go, "Oh my god, I gotta take him down." There's gotta be something that, like, just as a spectator, we're not understanding about what it's like to be in the cage with Patty, which feels crazy to say,
Yeah.
but I just, like, look at it and I'm just like, 3 is now a trend. I gotta take it seriously.
Yeah. Yeah, man.
Yeah. It's wild. I kinda wonder, like, I want a Dan Hooker or a Dustin Poirier or a Max Holloway, people that just, like, live in the fire to fight Patty just so I can go, like, am I crazy? Or, like, because if I see Max or I see Dustin or I see Dan Hooker do the same thing, where, like, they don't get hit by him, but they freak out when he throws near them, I'll go, "Okay, there must be something I truly don't understand." Because still with Michael Chandler and Bobby Green and Tony Ferguson, I'm like, maybe they just all have really bad donkey brains because we know they do. But it is weird that they all had donkey brains in a similar way when
Mhm.
fighting Paddy Pimblett. Um, yeah. But I gotta put respect on his name, dude. He finds a way to win. Just like Drickus, he finds a way to win. And like
Yep.
you have to respect that. And like also like his technique did look good on the ground and like his I think it was so good that you pointed out, like, his strategy standing. Even if his technique and mechanics are bad, he still lifts his chin when he throws punches. He still flares his elbows. He still, like, throws those kicks really jankily, but he knows
Mhm.
when to throw them. He picks the right time, and he has the right strategy to build off of them, right? He just isn't, like, good mechanically at throwing them. We have to respect that. It's just like Drickus throwing the most telegraphed jab ever, and yet it knocks out Robert Whitaker because he's like, I know when to throw this jab, and he does. It's dude, he's the 155 Drickus. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah,
It's crazy.
that is such a fitting analogy right there. Like,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah. So I think Armandsar, you can. I mean, anyone. I don't think Max or well, no, I'd watch a Max Patty fight. I watch a Dan Hooker Patty fight, an Armandsar you can Patty fight. I'd watch them all. A
Yeah.
Topuria Patty fight.
Jesus.
We've got good options at 155 and 145, and watch the UFC fuck this up and do a horrible one. Badil Dariush versus Patty, and Mateusz Gamrot versus Ilya Taporia. Something stupid,
I hope not.
Me too. Um, anything else to say about that fight or
No.
lightweight?
No, I think it's like you said, 314 has really kind of added not like these divisions needed it, but it's just shaken up featherweight and lightweight. The two divisions that we've always said have been like extremely exciting, extremely dynamic, with always like a rotating cast of challengers and exciting dynamic fighters. And this card just proved that even more. And I think when we were a little bit, about like what are these divisions going to look like? We're kind of nervous about what it is. I think, and I'm not saying that everything is all set for the future. But this is a glimpse into it, and I think the featherweight and lightweight divisions will continue to carry on as strong performers, strong entertainment value for the UFC, even though most of the other divisions are kind of trending in a negative direction right now.
Yeah, I agree. And like featherweight is the division of kings, and having Volkanovski back at the top, the king is
The king
assumed
of
his throne.
kings. Yes.
Yeah, we love it, right? And like lightweight, dude, Patty might be king, and then we got to deal with that. But like, let's wait to see.
Yeah.
It was exciting to see Michael Chandler because that Patty Pimblett saved us from like a truly historic cock gobbling by
Oh
Michael
my god.
Chandler to
Yeah.
Donald Trump, right? Like he would have
Thank
flated
God.
the president on live TV. It would have been horrible. Which like also like they should have just called this like RNC 314. Fuck UFC. Like this was GOP 314. This
Yeah.
was
God.
it was insufferable.
Horrendous. Like
Yeah.
fucking all
Yeah.
of the white of white could have
Yeah.
been there.
And
And
it's like,
like,
look, regardless of your political stance or whatever, the world economy lost $8 trillion and suffered a historic meltdown not seen since the Great Recession, COVID, and the 9/11 attacks. And it was all because one man went on a weird tariff, jihad, and then he had the gall to show up at a UFC event. Come on. Come on, everyone. You
Yeah.
can't be happy. Your 401k is fucked. All of your investments are fucked. Your house value is fucked. Your prospects for a job are fucked. As much as you like him and you hate immigrants, let's all band together. We all were duped, and he's pillaging and looting this country. So just let's all band together. We're all comrades, and let's take back the, like this world because it's crazy.
Do you
Um,
do you know what this actually really reminded me of?
mm,
If you've ever seen Gladiator or the shit sequel that
ooh,
came out,
uh,
it's
Jesus.
basically all those shitty politicians coming in to watch just a blood sport that's trying to entertain the masses of stupid people, us included, and ugh, I hated all of it. It really, it really upsets me that that is the demographic that you and I are finding ourselves wandering.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, is it more sort of like Hitler watching Matt Schmeling lose to fucking Joe Louis type situation? Is that where we're at? He watched Michael Chandler lose to Patty Pimblett, who I assume is no fan of Donald Trump because his famous phrase, as all people in Liverpool is fuck the Tories, fuck the Conservative Party. Um, like, I don't know. I don't know. I just It was kind of a rough watch.
Yeah.
But not as rough as watching the light heavyweight fight. Colin, what do you want to say about Dominic Reyes, Nikita Krylov? Last thing we're going to
Oh
talk about.
God, I forgot about that, and oh yeah, 2 years off, man. That's
Yeah.
fucking rough.
But did
Fucking rough,
Dominic Reyes
man.
look good?
Ah,
No, he didn't. He didn't.
no. I
He
mean,
didn't look good. No. It looked like two washed men fighting, and then one washed guy be like, I'm ready for a title because I beat another washed guy. It was terrible. It's terrible. 155, 145, great. We also love 135. We love 125. 170, we've got an interesting fight coming up. We've got Machado, Gary, versus our smoking, drinking, steak eating friend, Carlos Prates, teammate of John Silva. So, an exciting fight. Look, everything 170 and below is the promised land. Everything 185 and above is a wasteland. Don't go there. It's bad for you. Um, but we finally got good fights. We finally got good fights. And we're about to have two fight cards in a row where we have 1, 2, 3 fights that are worthwhile on each one. And then we're gonna get to Muhammad de la Madalena.
yeah.
We're in what should we call it, Colin? Is it the Rodriguez Duplessis era?
I,
We're
I
just
think
people that you look at and you go they shouldn't win, just keep winning.
I think we are kind of in the yeah, we are kind of in the weird traditional skill that is now void. How do I phrase this? The void of traditional skill. And yeah, I don't fucking know, man. Don't
I mean,
fucking know.
I guess maybe that's the order because MMA is such a young sport. We had this thing where it was all kind of brute athletic ability. Well, it was skill with Hoist Gracie, and then people learned jujitsu, and then we're like, but I'm also an athlete, and then they beat Hoist Gracie, and then you have to wait till a huge jump in skill again, and then you have athleticism. Is that maybe the cycle that we're beginning to recognize? Is
Skill, athleticism, skill.
But that's never been the case at 145 or 155 or 135. Jose Aldo, Max Holloway, Alexander Volkanovski. It's never been the case. Even with Conor McGregor in there, Conor McGregor had fantastic skill for what he was doing.
Well, yeah.
155, BJ Penn, Frankie Edgar, Anthony Pettis, Rafael dos Anjos, Conor McGregor, Khabib, all lights out skill fighters.
Yeah. We've just happened to have a pairing of people who have both had incredible skill and also extremely athletic, and most of the divisions have been one or the other at for the majority of their time. There have been periods where you've had a champion who've had both, but most of it has been one or the other, really.
But it's been weird to have divisions with people with high levels of skill get beat by Drickus and beat by Patty.
Yeah,
You know,
yeah, that's true.
it doesn't make sense. But we'll keep an eye out. And look, Patty's fight, the fight was entertaining.
It was.
And if he brings that level of entertainment to an Armin Saryukin fight, like holy shit, what does that look like? I'd be interested in watching.
Yeah.
Um, either way, 314, a weird time. A weird time had by all. I don't know. I'm feeling slightly lost in the sauce on like what the future of MMA is and my place in it as a mid 30-year-old watcher. I'm just like, I don't even know what to think of this thing. It's wild. It's like nothing I've ever seen before
Mhm.
in terms of like, yeah. Anyway, this has been 2 5 Fans Podcast. I'm on 5 Fans Stewart.
I'm the other Colin.
Dude, Paddy Pimblett is actually good, and I was wrong, and he's good, but he's also sucks.
Wow.
It's crazy, right? Like he sucks, but he's good. It's like Drickus, right? It's
Yeah.
crazy. So I don't know what to say. Paddy, I hope you beat Armin Saryukin. No, I don't actually. I don't know. I hope you fight Ilya Taporia. Let's get that in the
Oh
Bertabao.
god.
That could be huge, and let's see whatever happens, happens. I think Ilya will execute you, but if you beat him, I mean, there's nothing I'll be able to argue. I'll eat my own
No.
ass, I
All
guess.
right.
Yeah. All right, everybody. Bye.